The American Spotlight studio buzzed with the usual pre-show energy. Assistants adjusted lighting, sound technicians checked levels, and makeup artists made final touches. Elon Musk sat calmly in the guest chair, scrolling through his phone while the crew prepared for the live broadcast. 2 minutes, called the floor director. Nathan Bradley, the show's host for 7 years running, adjusted his tie and reviewed his note cards. Known for his sharp questions and occasional controversy, Bradley had built his reputation on getting public figures to reveal more than they intended. "Welcome back to American Spotlight," Bradley began once the cameras rolled. "Tonight we're joined by entrepreneur and innovator Elon Musk to discuss the future of sustainable energy, space exploration, and the role of technology in solving humanity's greatest challenges." The interview started professionally enough. Musk explained recent developments at his companies, occasionally allowing himself a slight smile when describing technological breakthroughs that particularly excited him. "These solar cells are 32% more efficient than what was available just 3 years ago," Musk explained, leaning forward slightly. "That's the difference between feasible and not feasible for many applications." Bradley nodded along, but his questions gradually shifted tone. "You're asking people to have tremendous faith in your vision of the future," Bradley remarked. "Speaking of faith," his eyes deliberately moved to Musk's open collar. "Most of our guests display some symbol of their spiritual foundation. I've noticed you don't wear a cross or any religious symbol." Musk paused, looking momentarily caught off guard by the abrupt change in topic. "I'm not sure that's relevant to—" "We're going to a quick break," Bradley interrupted, smiling at the camera as the theme music began to play. But as the commercial graphics appeared on the monitor, Bradley continued, not realizing his microphone remained active. "I notice you don't wear a cross, Mr. Musk," he said in a lower voice. "Most of our guests at least make the effort to show their faith when they come on, especially when they're asking the public to believe in their big ideas." A producer frantically signaled from off stage, drawing a finger across her throat, but the comment had already gone out live. The studio fell into uncomfortable silence. The camera operator glanced nervously between host and guest. Musk's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a slight tightening around the eyes, a moment of consideration. He took a slow breath, choosing not to engage with the provocation as the floor director counted down to their return from commercial break. "And we're back," Bradley announced smoothly, pivoting to questions about Mars missions as though nothing had happened. But in the control room, producers were already watching the first social media reactions begin to appear. By morning, the exchange would be the top trending topic nationwide. By 6 a.m. the next morning, the 16-second clip had been viewed over 7 million times. Musk's faith and Chektistan Bradley crossing were competing for the top trending spot on multiple platforms. The clip, Bradley's hot mic comment followed by Musk's brief look of surprise, had been edited, remixed, and reposted countless times, with each version spinning the narrative in different directions. Just watched Nathan Bradley basically demand Elon wear a cross on his show. "Since when is religious gatekeeping part of journalism?" wrote a popular tech commentator with 3 million followers. "If you're asking Americans to invest billions in your companies, shouldn't you be transparent about your values?" Bradley asked what we're all thinking, countered a prominent conservative voice. Inside Musk's hillside home, his communications director, Amelia Chen, scrolled through her tablet during an emergency morning briefing. "It's still accelerating," she told Musk, who sat at his kitchen island, drinking black coffee and reviewing production reports as if it were any other day. "Every major news outlet has picked it up. The morning shows are all running segments. Just noise, Musk replied, not looking up from his reports. It'll pass. Not this time, Chen insisted. Bradley went on his radio show an hour ago and doubled down. Said your refusal to wear religious symbols is a calculated business strategy to appeal to global markets that might be put off by Christian imagery. Musk finally looked up, his expression unreadable. Did he actually use the phrase, calculated business strategy? His exact words, Chen confirmed, sliding her tablet across the counter to show him the transcript. Across town, in the glass-walled conference room of American Spotlight's network offices, Bradley sat across from network executives and the show's producers. The atmosphere was tense. The numbers are actually extraordinary, said Vanessa Patel, the head of digital content, her tone carefully neutral. Last night's segment has already generated more engagement than the entire previous month combined. I was asking a legitimate question, Bradley insisted, though his usual confidence showed signs of strain. Public figures should be transparent about their beliefs. Through jewelry? Asked Ronald Meyer, the veteran executive producer, raising an eyebrow. By midday, religious leaders had entered the conversation. The Bishop of Los Angeles released a statement reminding followers that faith is lived through actions, not displayed through symbols, while a prominent evangelical pastor defended Bradley on his daily broadcast, suggesting that hiding one's faith has become fashionable among the tech elite. Politicians seized the opportunity as well. A senator tweeted, "In America, we respect all faiths and the right to privacy about personal beliefs." Bradley crossed a line. His political opponent responded within minutes. When public figures shape our future, we deserve to know what shapes their decisions. As evening approached, Musk's companies felt the impact. Tesla stock fluctuated wildly throughout the trading day as investors tried to anticipate how the controversy might affect consumer sentiment. SpaceX employees reported being questioned by reporters staking out the facilities. Inside Musk's home office, his team presented him with 3 carefully crafted response statements, each taking a different approach to diffusing the situation. "We need to get ahead of this," urged his legal counsel. "The board is getting nervous." Musk scanned the prepared statements, then set them aside. "Not yet," he said, looking out at the California sunset. "Let's see where this goes." "It's already gone nuclear," Chen reminded him. "Your silence is being interpreted in a dozen different ways." Musk nodded slowly. "I know, but I want to respond to the actual issue, not just the noise around it." He turned back to his team. "Give me until tomorrow. I think there's something important happening here that goes beyond Bradley or me." As night fell, the controversy showed no signs of abating. Opinion pieces were being published hourly. A late-night comedian included the incident in his monologue. "Bradley wants Musk to wear a cross. Musk wants us all to drive electric cars. I don't care what either of them wants me to wear or drive." What had begun as an unguarded comment was rapidly evolving into a national conversation about symbols, substance, and the intersection of faith, privacy, and public life. For 72 hours, Elon Musk maintained his silence as the controversy peaked and began to fracture into increasingly partisan interpretations. His communications team had prepared a standard corporate response, polished, measured, and ultimately forgettable, but he had declined to use it. On the morning of the 4th day, Musk woke before dawn. He made himself coffee and sat at his desk, looking out at the ocean. He opened his laptop and began to type. deleting and rewriting several times before settling on his words. At 7:14 a.m. Pacific Time, he posted his statement to social media without consulting his team. "I've been watching the conversation about faith and symbols with interest. I respect all religious traditions and those who find meaning in them. But faith, at its core, isn't about what you wear. It's about how you treat others and the values that guide your actions. My parents taught me that true spirituality is expressed through work that serves humanity's future and treats every person with dignity. I may not wear a cross, but I try to shoulder the responsibility of making hard choices that might benefit generations to come. I hope Mr. Bradley and I can have a longer conversation about this someday. Not as adversaries, but as two people with different perspectives who both want the best for the world." The response landed differently than most celebrity statements during controversies. There was no PR gloss, no obvious attempt to placate all sides. Instead, its directness and humanity cut through the noise. By noon, the original post had been shared over 2 million times. News anchors read it aloud on air. Religious leaders from diverse faiths cited it approvingly in their sermons and newsletters. Musk's response demonstrates precisely what authentic faith looks like, wrote Rabbi David Cohen in a widely shared essay. Not performative symbols, but a commitment to values that transcend self-interest. At a tech conference in Boston, an interviewer asked a panel of CEOs about the controversy. "I wasn't wearing a cross when I made the decision to provide 6 months of paid parental leave," said one executive to appreciative applause. "Actions speak louder than symbols," quickly became a catchphrase. Bradley, meanwhile, found himself in an increasingly uncomfortable position. His initial doubling down had backfired as public opinion shifted decisively toward Musk. Network executives scheduled an emergency meeting to discuss damage control. That evening, as Musk reviewed manufacturing data in his home office, his phone rang with an unknown number. "Mr. Musk, this is Nathan Bradley." There was a pause. "I think we should talk." Musk set down his tablet and looked out at the darkening sky. "I think you're right," he replied. The American Spotlight studio was different this time. No audience, no dramatic lighting, just 2 chairs angled slightly toward each other, a small table with water glasses between them, and 3 cameras positioned discreetly to capture the conversation. "We're trying something different tonight," Bradley explained to viewers as the broadcast began. "A real conversation, unedited and uninterrupted." Musk sat across from him, dressed much as he had been for the first interview. Simple dark suit, no tie. Bradley wore his customary on-air attire but had, notably, removed the small crosspin he typically wore on his lapel. "Before we begin," Bradley said, turning to face Musk directly, "I owe you an apology. I made assumptions about what your lack of religious symbols meant, and I expressed those assumptions inappropriately." Musk nodded, his expression neutral but attentive. "I made a mistake that many of us make," Bradley continued, looking into the camera briefly before returning his gaze to Musk. "I confused symbolism with substance. What followed was unlike anything American Spotlight had aired before. Rather than the usual format of provocative questions and carefully crafted answers, the conversation unfolded organically. Bradley asked about the values that guided Musk's work, and for once, seemed genuinely interested in the answer. "People often think technology is just about efficiency or profit," Musk explained. "But at its best, it's about removing limitations on human potential. That's a deeply moral purpose." As the hour progressed, Bradley shared stories from his Southern Baptist upbringing, including how the outward displays of faith in his community sometimes masked behavior that contradicted their professed values. "I think that's why I fixate on symbols sometimes," he admitted. "They were so important in the world I grew up in." Musk spoke about his own complicated relationship with organized religion and his belief that humanity's purpose might be to preserve and expand consciousness throughout the universe, a perspective that had spiritual dimensions without fitting neatly into conventional religious frameworks. The conversation took unexpected turns. The ethical implications of artificial intelligence, the psychological toll of social media pile-ons, the challenge of maintaining integrity when every word is scrutinized. "How do you handle being constantly misinterpreted?" Bradley asked at one point. "I focus on the work," Musk replied. "Words are important, but eventually, reality speaks louder than any narrative." As the hour drew to a close, Bradley addressed his audience again. "I came into this conversation thinking it would be about faith and public life, but it's really been about something simpler and more difficult. How to listen to each other with genuine curiosity instead of waiting to confirm what we already believe." The broadcast ended without the usual promotions for upcoming episodes or calls to follow on social media. Just two men, nodding respectfully to each other as the cameras stopped rolling. In the days that followed, clips from the conversation circulated widely, but not in the same frenetic, outrage-driven way as the original incident. Journalism professors assigned the full interview to their students as an example of recovery from a professional misstep. Religious leaders cited it as a model of interfaith dialogue. 6 months later, American Spotlight introduced a new monthly segment called Common Ground, featuring extended conversations between people with seemingly opposed viewpoints. Bradley, chastened but not defeated by his experience, found a new voice as a facilitator rather than an interrogator. As for Musk, he continued his work much as before, neither more nor less public about his personal beliefs. But at a commencement address the following spring, he referenced the incident obliquely. "We live in a time when it's easier to judge than to understand, easier to symbolize than to embody. The hardest and most necessary work of our age may be to look beyond our initial assumptions about each other, to listen for the deeper human truths beneath our differences." The controversy that had begun with a careless comment about a cross had, improbably, created an opening for a more nuanced public conversation about faith, identity, and mutual respect in a fractured cultural landscape.